The stars glimmered coldly against the vast darkness of space. Captain Hyun Park stood motionless, her eyes fixed on the holographic display that mapped the approaching alien fleet. The Sentinel, a massive Earth defense vessel, hummed with quiet tension. Outside the reinforced glass windows, distant planetary colonies flickered like tiny beacons of human hope. Earth had changed dramatically since the first alien contact 50 years ago. What began as a peaceful exploration had transformed into a brutal struggle for survival. Hyun remembered her grandfather's stories about military strategy. Tales passed down from generations of defenders who understood that survival meant more than just fighting. It meant thinking differently, adapting constantly. The Krell ships were approaching. Their metallic structures looked like massive mechanical insects, cold and calculated. Each vessel carried thousands of alien warriors, genetically engineered for combat and destruction. They moved with precision, like a swarm ready to consume everything in their path. Jae Kim, the ship's navigator, called out coordinate readings. His fingers danced across multiple holographic screens tracking the enemy's movement patterns. Every small detail mattered. One miscalculation could mean the difference between survival and total annihilation. "Captain," Jae's voice was steady, "enemy fleet is approximately 0.3 light-years from our current position. Their formation suggests a standard invasion protocol." Hyun nodded. Standard meant predictable, and predictable meant vulnerable. Soo Jin, the tactical officer, began preparing defensive protocols. Her hands moved swiftly, activating shield generators and charging weapon systems. The Sentinel's internal systems responded, massive energy conduits pulsing with potential power. Woo Choi, the engineering chief, monitored the ship's critical systems. He had spent years modifying standard defense mechanisms, creating innovative solutions that could potentially turn the tide of battle. His latest modifications to the electromagnetic shielding were about to be tested under real combat conditions. The team worked like a single organism, each member understanding their role perfectly. Years of training, simulations, and previous encounters had prepared them for this moment. Hyun's mind raced through possible scenarios. The Krell were known for their brutal efficiency. They didn't negotiate. They didn't show mercy. Their entire civilization was built around conquest and resource extraction. Humanity had learned this the hard way. Previous encounters had cost millions of lives and dozens of colonial settlements. Each battle taught them something new about their alien adversaries. The first wave of Krell ships would likely be reconnaissance units. Fast, aggressive, designed to probe defenses and identify weaknesses. Hyun had a plan for them. "Activate secondary sensor grid," she commanded. Her voice was calm, almost detached. Jae and Soo executed the order instantly. Hundreds of microsensors deployed around the Sentinel, creating an invisible network that would track and analyze every movement of the approaching fleet. The temperature on the bridge dropped slightly. Everyone knew what was coming. This wasn't just another military engagement. This was about humanity's survival. Woo checked the energy readings. The ship's quantum drive was at maximum efficiency. They could potentially execute multiple faster-than-light jumps if the battle turned against them. But retreat was the last option on anyone's mind. Hyun's hand rested lightly on the tactical interface. Her military training, combined with her innovative thinking, had earned her a reputation as one of Earth's most promising defensive strategists. The first Krell scout ships entered sensor range. They moved with an almost liquid grace, each vessel capable of incredible maneuverability. But Hyun had studied their movement algorithms for years. She knew their patterns better than they knew themselves. "Prepare initial countermeasures," she whispered. The first plasma bolts tore through the outer colonial defenses like paper. Hyun watched as entire research stations disappeared in silent, violent explosions. The Krell's initial assault was brutal and precise, designed to shatter human resistance before a real fight could begin. Jae's voice cut through the chaos. Multiple colony platforms neutralized, casualties estimated at 50,000. His voice was flat, professional, hiding the true horror of the numbers. Soo Jin's hands flew across the weapon systems. "Returning fire," she called out. Focused, energy beams lanced from the Sentinel, striking the nearest Krell scout ships. But the alien vessels seemed to dance around the attacks, their defense systems absorbing or deflecting most of the damage. Hyun understood immediately. This wasn't just a battle. It was a calculated invasion designed to break human spirit. The Krell's strategy was clear. They would destroy outer colonies first, creating a psychological impact. Each destroyed settlement was a message. Nowhere was safe. Nowhere was protected. Wu Choi was working frantically in the engineering section. His monitors showed the ship's systems were being pushed beyond normal operational limits. "Captain," he shouted, "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures in the Krell weapon systems." Hyun's mind was already processing the information. The Krell weren't just using traditional weapons. They were experimenting, adapting their technology in real time. Another wave of plasma bolts struck nearby colonial defense platforms. Each hit was precise, targeting critical infrastructure, communication arrays, power generators, life support systems. The Krell knew exactly where to strike to cause maximum damage. "We can't just defend," Hyun muttered to herself. "We need to change the game." Her training kicked in. Years of studying unconventional warfare, alien tactical patterns, and defensive strategies were about to be tested. The Krell expected a standard military response. They would get something entirely different. Jay started mapping potential retreat paths. But Hyun knew retreat wasn't an option. Every colonist, every human life counted. They had to stand their ground. The ship's internal alarms began a steady, rhythmic warning. Hull integrity was dropping. Shield systems were being challenged by the intense alien bombardment. But nobody on the bridge panicked. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Soo-jin identified a potential weakness in the Krell formation. A small gap between their forward scout ships suggested a communication delay. Most military strategists would miss such a subtle detail. But Hyun saw an opportunity. "Prepare micro-jump sequence," she commanded. The crew knew exactly what she meant. A micro-jump was dangerous. It involved momentarily shifting the entire ship's position by a microscopic distance. Too little, and it would be useless. Too much, and they could materialize inside solid matter. Wu began calculations. His fingers moved with surgical precision across quantum calculation interfaces. Each movement was a potential life-saving adjustment. The Krell continued their assault. Entire colonial sectors were being systematically destroyed. Thousands of lives vanished in moments, but humanity had survived worse. They would survive this. Hyun's plan was forming. She didn't just want to survive. She wanted to turn this assault into a learning opportunity. Every attack would teach them something about the Krell's tactics. Microjump in 3. Jay counted down. 2, 1. For a moment, reality seemed to bend. The Sentinel shifted, almost imperceptibly, but in that microscopic movement, everything changed. They had entered the smallest possible space between Krell attack vectors, a position no conventional military strategy would consider, a position that made them temporarily invisible to the alien fleet's advanced sensors. The first phase of the confrontation was complete, but the real battle was just beginning. Humanity had surprised the Krell, and surprise, in warfare, was the most powerful weapon of all. The quantum grid flickered to life, creating an invisible shield that stretched across millions of kilometers. Hyun's strategy was unlike anything the Krell had encountered before. Instead of a traditional defensive line, she was creating a living, breathing network of defensive nodes. Each Earth defense ship became more than just a weapon. They were now connected through a complex system of quantum entanglement, sharing information and defensive capabilities faster than light itself. Jay's navigation skills became critical. He transformed the defensive formation into a dynamic, constantly shifting pattern. Where the Krell expected solid lines, they found a liquid-like defense that could absorb and redirect attacks. Adaptive shield modulation engaged, Soo-jin announced. Her fingers danced across complex interface systems, turning each ship into a potential weapon and shield simultaneously. The first Krell attack wave crashed against this new defensive strategy. Their plasma bolts seemed to disappear, absorbed, or redirected by the quantum network. It was like trying to punch through water. The energy simply dispersed. Wu Choi had been working on this system for years. Quantum communication wasn't just about sending messages. It was about creating a collective defensive consciousness. Each ship could now react to threats milliseconds before they happened. Casualties were high. Human ships still suffered damage. But the rate of destruction had slowed dramatically. For every Earth vessel lost, the Krell paid a significantly higher price. Hyun watched the holographic displays, her mind calculating potential scenarios. The Krell were intelligent. They would adapt. They would find weaknesses. The defensive network had to remain flexible. Communication between ships became instantaneous. A damage report from one vessel would immediately trigger protective responses across the entire network. Ships could now predict and counter attack patterns before they fully developed. The star system became a complex dance of energy and movement. Krell ships tried multiple attack vectors, but the human defensive grid seemed to anticipate their every move. Where traditional military thinking would create fixed positions, Hyun had created a living, breathing defensive organism. Jay discovered something unexpected. By analyzing the quantum communication patterns, he could predict Krell attack strategies with increasing accuracy. What seemed like chaos to others revealed subtle patterns to his trained eye. "Captain," he called out, "I'm detecting a repeating communication frequency in their attack formations. They're using a standardized communication protocol." Hyun's eyes narrowed. A standard protocol meant predictability, and predictability meant vulnerability. Soo Jin began developing counter-frequency weapons. If they could disrupt the Krell's communication patterns, they could create moments of strategic confusion. Wu continued modifying ship systems. Each modification was a potential game-changer. He was turning defensive technology into something the Krell had never encountered. The battle wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity could adapt faster than any technological enemy. Hours turned into days. The defensive perimeter held. Human colonies began to breathe easier. The initial terror of potential total destruction was replaced by a growing sense of hope. Hyun rarely slept. Her mind was constantly analyzing, constantly planning. The quantum network was more than a defensive strategy. It was a living proof of human innovation. The Krell continued their attacks, but with each passing moment they looked less like a conquering force and more like a confused entity, struggling to understand this new form of resistance. One by one, Krell attack waves were neutralized, not through overwhelming force, but through intelligent, adaptive defense. They were learning the most important lesson about humanity. When cornered, humans don't just fight. They revolutionize warfare itself. The defensive perimeter was more than a military strategy. It was a statement. Humanity would not go quietly. Humanity would fight. Humanity would survive. The workshop deep inside the Sentinel buzzed with intense energy. Wu Choi stood surrounded by holographic displays, his hands moving rapidly across complex interfaces. What started as a simple modification was turning into a technological revolution. Communication arrays weren't just communication tools anymore. They were becoming weapons. Jay's latest data analysis revealed a critical weakness in Krell technology. Their ships relied on extremely precise quantum synchronization. One small disruption could cause massive system failures. Hyun watched as Wu transformed standard communication equipment into something entirely new. Electromagnetic pulse generators that could travel through quantum communication networks. Each pulse was a carefully designed weapon that could temporarily blind entire Krell fleet sections. "We're not just defending," Wu explained, his voice calm and focused. "We're fighting back using their own technology against them." The first test came unexpectedly. A massive Krell attack wave approached, their ships looking like a metallic storm ready to consume everything. Traditional weapons would have been useless against such numbers. Soo Jin activated the modified communication arrays. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then suddenly entire sections of the Krell fleet went dark. Ships stopped moving. Their weapon systems collapsed. It wasn't destruction. It was total technological paralysis. Hyun understood the significance immediately. This wasn't just a military breakthrough. This was a fundamental shift in how warfare could be conducted. Technology was no longer just a tool. It was a living, adaptive weapon. The Krell had always considered themselves technologically superior. They viewed humans as primitive, adaptable, but ultimately limited. Now they were discovering how wrong they had been. Jay's navigation skills became crucial. He could now predict exactly where to send these quantum disruption pulses. Each pulse was like a surgical strike, targeting specific communication and navigation systems. Entire Krell battle groups became confused. Ships that were moments ago part of a coordinated attack now drifted aimlessly. Their advanced AI systems couldn't comprehend the sudden technological breakdown. Wu continued modifying systems. What worked once would not work again. The Krell would adapt. Humanity needed to stay one step ahead. "We're turning their strength into their weakness," Hyun told her team. Her voice was calm, almost philosophical. This wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about proving a fundamental truth about human innovation. The quantum communication network became more than a defensive tool. It was now an offensive weapon that could strike faster than light, more precisely than any traditional weapon. Krell. Command structures began to break down. Their highly organized military started showing cracks. For the first time, they looked vulnerable. Each successful pulse gave human engineers more data, more understanding of alien technology. What seemed incomprehensible moments ago was now becoming clear. Sujin developed targeting algorithms that could predict Krell ship movements milliseconds before they happened. Navigation became a form of warfare. Every movement was calculated, every pulse a potential game changer. The battle wasn't just happening in space anymore. It was happening in quantum communication networks, in lines of code and mathematical predictions that humans were suddenly becoming masters at creating. Wu's team worked around the clock. Sleep was a luxury. Innovation was the only currency that mattered. Each modification could save thousands of lives. Jay's screens showed something remarkable. The Krell were starting to retreat. Not because they were destroyed, but because they were confused. Their technology turned against them. Hyun realized they had done something unprecedented. They weren't just defending human colonies anymore. They were changing the entire concept of technological warfare. As another wave of quantum pulses swept through the Krell fleet, something became clear. Humanity's greatest weapon was never its technology. It was its ability to adapt, to learn, to transform challenges into opportunities. The technological uprising had begun, and the Krell had no idea what was coming next. The final confrontation looked nothing like anyone had predicted. Space itself seemed to bend around the massive fleet formations. Hyun Park stood absolutely still, watching the holographic displays that mapped the cosmic battlefield. Krell command ships began breaking apart, not from traditional weapons, but from within. The quantum communication disruptions had spread like a technological virus, consuming their most advanced systems. Jay's navigation calculations had become supernatural. He could predict Krell movements before their own commanders could process them. Each movement was a chess move, calculated months in advance. "Total system compromise in 3 sectors," Sujin reported. Her voice was calm, almost detached. Years of training had prepared her for this moment. Wu Choi's modifications had transformed every human ship into a potential weapons platform. Communication arrays fired quantum disruption pulses. Shield systems absorbed and redirected energy. Nothing worked the way the Krell expected. The alien fleet had entered this battle believing in their technological superiority. Now they were discovering the true meaning of human adaptability. Massive Krell battleships started drifting. Their advanced AI systems couldn't comprehend the total breakdown happening around them. Entire command structures collapsed in moments. Hyun understood this was more than a battle. This was a demonstration of human potential. Every technological limitation was just another problem waiting to be solved. Quantum pulses continued spreading. Each pulse carried not just energy disruptions, but complex information patterns that confused alien computer systems. The Krell were experiencing something they had never encountered, a truly adaptive enemy. Targeting systems compromised, Jay announced. His fingers moved across complex interfaces, turning what was once a defensive position into an offensive masterpiece. The cosmic battle looked like a strange dance. Human ships moved with incredible precision, creating defensive networks that absorbed and redirected massive energy attacks. Where the Krell expected resistance, they found transformation. Wu's team had essentially rewritten the rules of technological warfare. Communication was now a weapon. Information flow could destroy entire fleet sections. Traditional military understanding meant nothing anymore. Sujin tracked the battle progression. Casualty rates were shifting dramatically. Human losses were minimal compared to the total Krell fleet destruction. Each destroyed alien ship provided more data, more understanding. Hyun watched the cosmic canvas before her. This wasn't just about defending human colonies anymore. This was about proving that adaptability was the most powerful weapon in the universe. The Krell command structure began total system shutdown. Their communication networks collapsed. Entire battle groups became isolated, unable to coordinate or communicate. Final defensive line breached, Jay reported. His voice carried a hint of something between excitement and profound respect for the mathematical precision of their victory. Massive Krell ships started exploding. Not from direct weapon hits, but from internal system failures. Their own technology had become their greatest weakness. Wu continued monitoring the quantum communication network. Each pulse carried not just destruction, but information. They were learning about alien technology with every moment of the conflict. Hyun understood this victory meant more than just saving human colonies. This was a fundamental shift in how intelligent species might interact in the future. Adaptation was the true measure of intelligence. The final Krell command ship disintegrated, not with a massive explosion, but with a quiet technological surrender. Systems simply stopped functioning. Communication networks collapsed. Silence filled the Sentinel's bridge. They had done something unprecedented. They had defeated a technologically superior enemy by understanding them better than they understood themselves. Sujin's final report was simple. Total Krell fleet neutralization complete. Hyun looked out into the vast cosmic darkness. Humanity had just changed the rules of warfare forever, and they had done it not through brute force, but through intelligence, adaptation, and an unwavering belief in their potential. The cosmic victory was complete, but something told Hyun this was just the beginning of a much larger journey.